This video will show you how to remove the stock front and rear suspension on all 1997 through 2006 Jeep Wrangler TJs.
So to kick off our install, we need to get our Jeep up in the air. Now, if you are doing this on a jack and jack stands, you will need to chock the rear wheels because we'll be starting in the front. So just jack up the front, but if you have a lift, let's get it up on the lift. So once you have your Jeep up in the air, we're gonna go ahead and take off our tires. I'm gonna be using a 19mm deep socket. So before we go ahead and break any bolts, I would recommend to hit everything with a PB Blaster or a WD-40, some type of penetrator, and then we are going to support our axle with some pull jacks. So after our axle is supported, we can go ahead and remove our track bar. So before we do our track bar, we want to open up some room to get to that castle nut there. So we are going to disconnect our sway bar links. These are a quick disconnect system. So I'm just going to push this sway bar link off of the pin here, and then we can drop it down after we do the other side. We can drop it down and remove this top bracket. It's kind of giving me some issues. We're not reusing these, so I'm just going to hammer them off. There we go. So for this quick disconnect system, you're just gonna pull this pin. After that's off, should be able to push it off, but it seems a little seized. So unfortunately, the bolts on our sway bar disconnects have rounded out. Now they are a Torx bit. I would be mindful of this. If you have stock sway bar disconnects, the top bolt is going to be a T55 Torx bit, but for this we have a U-bracket here. So unfortunately, we are not able to get this off how we want it. So we are gonna have to cut this U-bracket in order to get the sway bar disconnects off. So you probably won't have to do this at home, but I'm gonna take a cut-off wheel and cut our U-bracket. So now we need to remove this pin for the quick disconnect system that was already installed on this Jeep. I'm going to be using a 19mm wrench on this side and a small screwdriver. I did have to crack it loose with a pair of channel locks here, as well as that 19mm wrench here. But once you have a crack loose, it should come off pretty easy. And that is just a bolt that inserts in that pin there. Now, if you have the stock links, this is not going to be the case. You will have a bolt and a nut on either side, so it should be a little bit easier for you. Now we can do the same thing on the other side. After those are out of the way, we can move on to our track bar. So we're gonna start by removing the bottom track bar bolt. The upper track bar bolt has a couple of things in the way. I would like to get the spring out of the way in order to get that castle nut off. So we're gonna start down at the bottom because that's still gonna allow us to drop our axle. I'm gonna be using a 15mm deep socket. All right, and our axle is shifted and disconnected from there. So now I'm going to use a 13mm socket and 13mm wrench, as well as a small extension, and we're going to remove the two bolts that are holding in the bottom of our front shock. After that, we can move to the top shock bolt. So what we need to do is take off this top bolt. However, when we do spin that, our whole shaft spins. So what I did, I just took a pair of channel locks or vice grips, clamped them on up against our shock perch here, and now we can take a 15mm ratcheting wrench or a 15mm wrench and take off this top nut. These can be a pain, so I recommend to hit this with a penetrator, again, just like everything else. So you won't need this factory hardware, but we are still going to remove it. Should have a cup washer, a bushing, as well as that nut. Okay, now we can do the other side. we can drop our axle and take out our shocks. So being mindful of our shocks, we're just going to start to lower our axle down a little bit so we can wedge them out. So now we're gonna go ahead and start dropping our axle to get our springs out. And it's a little sideways, but that's okay. That's because our track bar is still connected, but we need to get this spring out. So now that we're in the rear, we supported our axle, and we're gonna start by taking off our sway bar end links. I'm gonna be using an 18mm wrench for the outside, as well as a 15mm socket to remove this nut. Right, now we can remove the top bolt. It has a flag nut on the back. I'm gonna be using an 18mm socket to remove that. There goes our flag nut and our sway bar link. So I'm gonna be using an 18mm swivel for the top since we don't have a lot of room since our exhaust is here. There's our flag nut and our bolt. Now we can start to remove our rear shocks. Now we're gonna start with the bottom bolt. It's gonna be a 19mm socket, 19mm wrench to remove that. Might have to put a little bit of pressure on the axle in order to wiggle that out. So now I'm going to use a 13mm swivel socket as well as a pretty long extension to reach our upper bolt. Now there is one on the other side as well. May be pretty difficult to see since they are in a pretty hidden location. So for the outer one, as you can see, I used a standard 13mm shallow socket, and now our shock is fully removed and we can do the same thing on the other side. So in order to drop our axle, we do need to remove our track bar, but I'm gonna use a 3/4 inch wrench to remove this bolt. You could also use a 19. You could also use a socket. However, we don't have a lot of room with our gas tank here. So there is not a flag nut on the other side of this bolt because there was previously a track bar relocation bracket here, as you can tell by the bolt hole down here that was previously drilled. I just have a 19mm wrench back there as my flag nut, holding it still. So once you lower your axle on stock control arms, it's gonna roll the axle forward and pull it back. So you may get a little bit of clearance out of that for this bolt. Bolt is just being not the kindest. So after we have our track bar disconnected, we can start to lower our axle, and it's gonna give us enough droop to get our springs out. Just be careful, you have a lot of lines back here, so keep an eye on those. Also, your track bar is gonna try to shimmy out, that's okay. All right, so this is low enough where we can take our spring out.
Thanks for watching, and remember, for all things Jeep, keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.